Good afternoon. My name is Olivier Oullier. I am a scientist, and as such, I have to tell you something. In full disclosure, I'm absolutely partial, I'm not objective, and what I'm going to share with you is my highly biased opinion on the topic we're going to discuss. And I hope that many of you would disagree so that we can engage in a very interesting conversation afterwards. So my job on a daily basis is to try to understand how the brain and behavior of humans are working. And I try to understand how we make decisions, how we influence each other, how we get influenced by people. And one of the things I've been studying for more than 15 years is the interplay in our brains between what we like to refer to as emotion and rationality. We've been told since the first books we read on philosophy, on psychology, on education, that there are parts or networks in the brain that are rational and some other networks that are emotional. And it's a very convenient way to see things. Boxes. There is this box of emotion and this box of rationality. And because our brain is producing these two boxes, we've assumed that this is the way our brain is functioning, that there should be a box about emotion in the brain and a box about rationality. Well, recent studies, thanks to these wonderful machines that allow us to record brain activity and to visualize brain activity, have shown that what we believed for decades to be the rational part of a brain, the think about Rodin's thinker, what is on the forehead, the prefrontal cortex, is not only in charge, or actually it's in charge of nothing, participating into our rational thinking and executive functions. But it's also necessary in order to have emotions. And those parts that we thought were in charge of emotions actually participate to rational thinking. So it looks like in our brains, emotions and rationality are intertwined. What I refer to as emo-rationality. Why did I share that example with you? It's because I've learned when I studied psychology and neuroscience that there was emotion and rationality. But then I had to unlearn that and to adapt to new knowledge and maybe a new lens to analyze human behavior. And this is what we have to do on a daily basis. If we are a smart system, as people who like to see us as system refer to, being able to use the knowledge we have, we memorize and we learned, in order then to challenge it with new things, to new facts, to new opinions, and ultimately to unlearn what we've learned and to relearn something. And this is the case I would like to make today. A lot of us are familiar with this quote from Alvin Stoffel. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I think that today, not only as a behavioral and brain scientist, but as the father, the very proud father of Sarah and Chloe, I think that most teaching programs are preparing our kids not for the 21st century, but for the past. We're teaching them in a way that does not prepare them to what life is going to be. And you know what? No one is to blame, because when you look at history, it's always been very hard to predict the future, but maybe it's harder than ever today. Things are changing at a pace that we never witnessed before. What Professor Klaus Schwab, the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, refers to as the fourth industrial revolution. This unique moment in history that we're witnessing and living, where there is this convergence between analytics, technology, knowledge, that is totally and radically changing the way we think, the way we act, and the way we work. And this is what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about the fact that we have no clue, absolutely no clue, despite what we hear from the self-proclaimed futurists, what the labor market is going to be in 10 years, and maybe not in 5 years. Most of what we know and we're almost sure about is that millions of jobs are going to disappear. What we hear a lot from people ranging from education, the private sector, global organizations, but also governments, is that our kids are more likely than us to have multiple professional lives. They will have to learn new skills. They will have to use what they learned, to unlearn it and to relearn. And there is one particular thing that is useful in that case, is memory. So, okay, you might think, do I really need to come to this prestigious forum to hear some French academic tell me that memory is useful? Yeah, but memory is useful to remember things. But memory is even more useful to predict the future, to cope with the future, prospective memory, using what we've learned, what we think, in order to be able to better adapt to the future. So here is where we are now. We're in a context where educators, because of policy making, are teaching kids some topics that are very necessary. Maths, literature, foreign languages. And I was talking to a friend a few minutes ago who mentioned that as he was discussing with the people in charge of a school where his kid is going to go, that they were putting the emphasis on, we're going to teach half of the classes in Mandarin because they need to learn Mandarin, and we're going to do this and that. Well, this is actually cool. This is actually good. It's actually very good for our kids to learn multiple languages. But maybe Mandarin is not the one, or maybe there is not one that needs to be learned. And the thing is, they need to learn languages. Who cares about the language? Because by the time they will be on the job market, they will have things in their ears or implanted in them that will translate and allow them to understand everyone. So maybe what they need to do is to be taught at school to be adaptive. So call it cognitive flexibility if you're a psychologist. Call it mental agility if you are not a psychologist, but someone who wants to train executives. No matter what, the words are not important here. The bottom line is important. What matters is we need our kids and ourselves to be able to adapt to changes more than ever. So of course, one could argue that being adaptive, being agile, is part of the human beings, of what we are. And this is quite true. I mean, I've been often asked either to write articles or a book once about intelligence, and my answer was, I lack matter. Because it's very difficult for me to give you a definition of intelligence. A lot of psychologists and people in tests will ask to answer questions in order to evaluate your IQ, in order to evaluate your EQ, so intelligence, emotions, as if one was better than the other, or as if one could be quantified. I mean, quantifying intelligence, let's first agree on a definition, and then we can think about being able to quantify it. A lot of people have done it, but a lot of people who produce these tests that have been used in education did not know that their tests would be used in order to discriminate people. And let me tell you one thing. When I talked about the memory being able to predict the future, if you're told after an IQ test, or if a kid is told that they have a low IQ, it's going to stick in their minds. It's going to stick in their minds, and this mindset that they will have will prevent them, maybe, to have success in life, whatever success means, or to be happy. EQ is interesting, as if it was all about emotions. So of course, I could come with another one, AQ. adaptive, FQ, flexibility, you name it. My book will come out soon, and I hope you'll enjoy it. Anyway, that's not the point yet. The point is, we need to find ways to educate people, but not only kids, people in the workplace, to be adaptive, to be flexible. In 2006, the World Economic Forum conducted a study on the future of jobs and surveyed top chief human resources and chief strategy officers in global companies and global organizations. 65% of them thought that one of the priorities on the job market will be to reskill people. Reskill. 35% of them thought that there will be mobility as a priority. But not only mobility at the geographical level, but we're talking aussi, see? Switching to French. Not good, not adaptive here. Also, at the mental level. So, what do? We learn skills, we learn content, we apply it, we feed this theoretical knowledge that we have with experience. And we build on this experience in order to face facts. And if these facts contradict our experience or our knowledge, we adapt. That is the ideal picture. But unfortunately, we're witnessing, together with this incredible development of technology, our access to data and to the use of data that is unprecedented. We're also seeing the rise of a movement, a mindset, which is who cares about the facts and who cares about the data? And you know what I'm referring to. Unfortunately, negativity spreads way faster than positivity. And this movement, mindset, ideology where facts no longer matter is not only dangerous at the political level, as many are focusing on at the moment, but it's also dangerous at the educational level. So how can we use facts in a way that is not only useful, but also engaging? So in order to be able to train people to unlearn, meaning that they don't forget what they learned, but they use what they learn in order to face new challenges. And when these new challenges are contradicting or challenging what they know, people will have to relearn things. We can think about talking to policymakers, and this is why this conference is so important, because all of us here, people who are teaching, people who are doing science, people who are doing policymaking, and people from business, we need to work hand in hand, because it's not all about the education of our kids. Of course, we need to prepare them to a world where the technology is going to be more and more important, and maybe one of the most important skill sets will not be to be able to use an iPad today, to be able to code, because AI will code AI, most certainly, if not tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, but to be able to deal with all this technology. Education should stop being about learning knowledge by heart. Most of this knowledge will be available as brain implants or a chip somewhere that will provide us all of this. But how to cope with it, how to adapt, how to make the best use with it. So that's one thing. And I would like you to leave with a few take-home messages. The first one is, when we talk about unlearning, it's not negative. We're talking about something absolutely positive. It's not referring to the fact that when you were a kid, you were so good at hoops at basketball or playing piano, and now you're an adult, you're no longer that good. That's life. Unlearning is about using what we know about behavioral and brain sciences, knowing that there is this period between 22 and 30, more or less, where there is a kind of decay at the neuronal level that allows us to learn, to reinforce the learning. Unlearning is not only important, It's necessary. The second point is that we need not only to have programs in school that allow our kids to face challenges, to be taught things that they don't believe in order to develop their critical minds, but we need to have a strategy and a planning that goes through their entire lives, meaning that a lot of people are undergoing executive education after 35, after 40, in order to update their knowledge to the current world. This format should start earlier and should be more frequent as part of the future of work and the future jobs. The people who create companies should, from the get-go, be able to plan to have executive education models for people that start the job after a year, after 6 months, every 2 years, but plan that so that there is an update that is provided on the workplace. But also, if, when they went to school, our kids are trained to challenge things, are faced with fake news, fake facts, and know how to discuss them, then the benefit will be tremendous for the future. And let me finish with the words of the teachers of all teachers, the master of all masters. In 1980, so almost 40 years ago, Master Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back said, "You must unlearn what you've learned." I thank you very much for your attention. And the floor is open for question. My friend here has a microphone. Lady in blue here. Not you, but if you got a question afterwards, we'll be more than happy.
How do you actively practice this art of unlearning?
No, because I'm human and I'm preaching things that I don't apply, so...
This is bullshit.
Oh, thank you. So, here is the thing. I've tried, and the example I gave at the beginning was very challenging for me. Having studied passionately behavioral and brain sciences and explored in philosophy to cognitive science and psychology this notion of emotion and rationality, it was very hard not to think that our brain was functioning this way. It was actually hard in a way, but very interesting when we had results. And it's not my team who discovered that, in full disclosure. This has been discussed for centuries, but technology has allowed a bunch of scientists around the world to challenge this, and also to be able to challenge economic thinking and rational economic theory, which is also something we should unlearn very quickly, and we still stick to it. So I would say that it's easy to try to practice it. It's harder to actually apply it in real life, because one of the things we need to unlearn is the result of our ability to categorize. These boxes are very convenient to say friends, enemy, emotion, rationality, good, bad. And that facilitates our lives because we put people or thoughts in a box and then we move forward. But this is not the way it is. So I would say, as we get older, and I'm no longer a kid, unfortunately, it gets harder. And this is why we should not only practice ourselves, but lead by example and do it with the kids as well, and our colleagues and friends. And I see that you're sitting next to one of the most critical thinkers I know who challenges people quite a lot, Professor Lutfi Siddiqui from the London School of Economics. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want someone to challenge whatever you say, talk to this man. Yes, and then we have another lady in blue. There is a pattern here. I'm trying to unlearn.
Yeah, I'm a language teacher, and when I heard you talking about implantations in the ear to translate, I said, okay, what I'm going to do now. as a teacher, no? A language teacher. But I think this is a kind of reduced view of what a language means, because you can translate the whole cultural aspects involved in language one-to-one conversation in an ear implant or something. So
two things. The first thing is I would strongly advise to say you can't something, because basically as soon as we think that the technology is not doing something, there are a bunch of guys who are already doing it. That's more or less what is happening today. However, to your point, what I mentioned is that I don't want kids to stop learning language. What I said is that which language is no longer important. As long as they learn multiple languages and that it allows their brain to develop in a certain way to be adaptive, here we go. But the obsession about English, Spanish, Mandarin, and some say French in the future, because it's not me, it's UNESCO. By 2050, there are numbers that predict, or there are people that predict that French will be one of the most spoken languages in the world because of the rise of population in Africa. So don't laugh. Some people are saying that. I'm just reporting the numbers. No, but what I'm saying is there is a focus on, there is a very utilitarian approach nowadays when it comes to learning languages. In saying, okay, what languages are going to be the most useful for my kids in the future? And this is why I mentioned English, Spanish, Mandarin, Russian. But my point is just, who cares? Learn 2 or 3 languages at this stage so that your brain develops, and then the technology will help with the languages you don't know, but at least you'll be trained as a kid to juggle with multiple languages. And more important than that, and this is where you will be important always, is if you're specialized in teaching a particular language, as you very accurately mentioned, you don't only teach the language, you teach what we know at the social level, the habits, the patterns, and this is something also that the kids need to learn to deal with. So I hope this clarifies, and I'm very sorry if I sounded very negative about that. That wasn't the case at all.
Hi, I mean, just this concept on unlearning, and well, as I think for someone who's just beginning to learn something, there is really not much unlearning involved. But then someone who is at a far higher stage in maybe their career, and there's a lot of unlearning involved. And getting them to unlearn involves a lot of change in the behavior as well, and their perception of unlearning and what it does to their to their understanding. So did I do this wrong all the while, and so why should I unlearn? So I think, do you think that it's important that for an organization to create that culture of unlearning, it's important to more to set up that culture rather than look at individuals and look at them unlearning? Because it's a whole big theory to get an organization to develop a culture of unlearning, so to say, and constantly new learning.
Well, I think it's not just theory. When we go back 20 years, discussing values in a company or an organization was not on the radar. When we go back 20 years, talking about work flexibility in terms of where to work at home or in the workplace was not something that was a priority. And then rather than the theory, the numbers came, that those who practiced having strong values had benefits from it. Those who practiced work flexibility could see in certain sectors a lot of positive effects for the people, but also in terms of productivity of a company. So my proposal, which is not mine, there are a lot of people thinking like that, is really about considering this as an asset for the company. And when you say unlearning has some cost, I think we've got a beautiful example in sports recently, for those who follow. Roger Federer. Federer changed his way of playing. And no later than, I think it was earlier this week, he said that he was surprised by how good he had become with his new movement, his back movement. And this is one of the reasons he managed to win another Grand Slam tournament, because at some point he had plateaued. And as an expert, he knew that in order to try to come back and to be better than the others, he had to change his way of playing. So we are not unfortunately or not, we are not all Roger Federers. However, we can be inspired by what he did, which is, I mean, he's in his own domain at the almost end of his career. Yet, in order to have one last shot or a couple of last shots at winning, what he did was to say, okay, I'm Roger Federer, yet I need to unlearn one movement and to relearn how to play in a different fashion so that I can have a chance. And this is quite inspiring. One would say that he's in a certain context that allows him to do that, but I think that at a personal level, we shouldn't be waiting for the organization. We should do it ourselves, yet we all agree that we are not individuals, that our social and physical environments participate a lot in our behaviors and our changes in behavior. Hence, if organizations, public, private, and also the regulators and the policymakers facilitate that and promote whatever you call it, unlearning or flexibility or agility, we would have better results. And I think beyond having better results or performance at work, we're talking about survival on the labor market, because things are changing so fast that whatever we're teaching our kids might disappear. One last example is I'm discussing, as part of my daily job, with people who are designing the medical school of the future. And one of the questions in the air at the moment is, do we need to train radiologists, knowing that within less than 5 years, most of the work they've been doing will be outperformed by machines. So we do not need to get rid of radiologists. We just need to train them to use the new AI/deep learning technology and the additional information they provide compared to the usual scans that we've been using for 15, almost 20 years for some of them.
Hi. So you've convinced me. Cognitive flexibility is going to be very important. Have you got any strategies when I go back to school tomorrow? So you gave us one at the end there using fake news. Have you got any other things I could use tomorrow in my classroom to help my kids develop their flexible cognitive?
Let me share with you. So I did that at university, but it can be done with any age. I have a class called Multi-Level Analysis of Human Behavior, meaning that it was trying to explain to students in behavioral sciences the relation between our genes, our physiology, neurophysiology, behavior, psychology, cognition, and even movements, the group behavior. And the very first class, I start from the gene, and I show a correlation to physiology, from physiology to neurophysiology to behavior, etc., etc. So I connect genetics to mass movements. And at the end of a class, in the last 15 minutes, I show a big chart saying, do we agree that all of these things are connected and influence each other? And they're like, yes, yes, yes. It's all right. Homework for next time. Forget everything I said. This is BS. All I just shown is that with a couple of correlation, we can explain everything. But again, correlation is not causation, etc., etc. But the thing is challenging with also visualizing and showing them that even if it's printed, even if there is evidence, it doesn't mean that this is the truth. And we have 4 seconds left. Let me leave you with one fact. Seriously, if I haven't convinced you, you should really question your cognitive flexibility, guys. Have a very good day.